On the 43rd floor of a Seoul high-rise, the most dangerous man in the building stood in his doorway. He didn't step inside. Something was wrong with his desk. Not broken, not moved, nothing stolen. But his eyes locked on the left edge, 6 inches from the corner, and stayed there. For 337 mornings, a small yellow flower had waited in a thin glass, no bigger than a shot glass, water still fresh, petals still open, stem cut clean. Today, the glass was gone. He counted the seconds he stood there. 9. He counted because 9 seconds of hesitation in his line of work was the kind of thing that got people killed. His name doesn't matter yet. What matters? He ran the 43rd floor the way a current runs through deep water. You didn't see it. You felt it. People adjusted to him. Never the other way. He crossed to his chair, sat, pressed both palms flat on the desk surface, the way a pilot checks instruments before takeoff. 337 mornings. Same spot, same glass, same kind of flower, whatever was cheapest at the stand near Yeoljiro station that day. Sometimes white, usually yellow. Once in December, a single red carnation because the stand had nothing else. He'd never asked for it, never asked about it, never said thank you, not once. And now, the spot was bare, and the room felt like a word with a letter missing. He pulled up the security system on his monitor, typed the camera code for the 43rd floor hallway, started scrolling backward. Here's what he found. 5:14 a.m. A woman entered the frame. Gray uniform. Cleaning cart parked outside the door. Mop handle in her left hand. Single flower in her right. She swiped her badge. The door opened. She stepped inside. She didn't look around. Didn't pause. Didn't touch anything on his desk except that one spot. Left edge, 6 inches from the corner. She set the flower in the glass. Straightened the stem once. Turned. Walked out. 40 seconds, start to finish. He clicked the next day. 5:14 a.m. Same woman, same flower, same 40 seconds. Next day. 5:14. Same. Next. Same. He started clicking faster. March, April, May, June. The flowers changed color. The uniform stayed gray. The time never shifted. 5:14. 5:14. 5:14. Steady as a second hand. Day 337. She entered, placed a white daisy, left. Day 338. He clicked. The hallway stayed empty. 5:14 came and went. 5:15. 5:20. 5:30. The door never opened. The frame never changed. Just fluorescent light and a clock counting forward into a morning where nobody came. He pressed 2 knuckles into the desk, picked up the phone, called building management. The voice was young, bored, reading from a screen. 43rd floor cleaning staff, let me check Osei Esther. Shift status, unfilled. Employee hospitalized, replacement not yet assigned. Esther Osei. He'd never heard that name. Not once in 337 days. Hospitalized from what? I don't have that, sir. Just the staffing note. He hung up. Then he did something his people had learned to watch for. He reached for his Patek Philippe, unclasped it, set it face down on the desk. The only time that watch came off was when something required his full, personal attention. His people knew what it meant. It meant, this is mine now. He stood, walked out, no driver, no assistant, no phone call. A woman he'd never spoken to had filled his empty room with something alive 337 times. And now she was in a hospital, and nobody on his staff could tell him why. 23 minutes from his office to the hospital, a public ward. The air tasted like hand sanitizer and boiled rice. Beige floors, blue curtains between beds, so thin they hid nothing but the idea of privacy. A TV bolted high on the wall played a morning variety show to nobody. He gave her name at the front desk. The nurse looked at his suit, then his face, then her screen. 3rd floor, bed 7, shared room, 4 patients. He took the stairs. The door was open, 2 beds on the left, an older woman sleeping with her mouth wide, a younger man scrolling his phone with a cast on his arm, 1 bed on the right, empty, sheets pulled military tight. The last bed, closest to the window, had its curtain half drawn. He stopped at the curtain's edge. Esther Osei was smaller than she'd looked on camera. Her face was thin past tired. This was structural, built over months, not days. The IV ran into her left hand. Her other hand rested on her stomach, fingers curled slightly, holding something in her sleep that wasn't there. Her cleaning uniform sat on the chair, not thrown, folded, corners neat. The shoes below it had soles worn down to paper, the rubber so thin the floor had started eating through, but the notebook stopped him. It sat on the bedside table. Cheap, maybe 2001 from a convenience store. The cover was soft from too many hands, the spine cracked in 3 places. He looked at her face, still asleep, breathing shallow. The monitor beside her beeped, steady, patient, the only sound in the room that had a rhythm. He reached for the notebook, his fingers stopped over it. He hadn't hesitated like this over anything in years. He opened it. The pages were warped. Dried moisture, rain, sweat, something pressed too close to a body on a hot commute. Every 3rd or 4th page held a flower, pressed flat, taped down with tape that had turned yellow at the edges. She'd kept one from each week. For herself, he turned the pages. Her handwriting was neat, small in English. Grocery lists, bus times, her son's school schedule, pick up by 3:15, homework by 4, dinner by 5:30 if the rice cooker didn't fail again. Then, on a page near the middle, no date, no context, a single line, written larger than the rest. If I make one beautiful thing a day, the ugly parts are smaller. He read it twice, 3 times. He closed the notebook, set it exactly where it had been, pulled the chair beside the bed, close enough to be present, far enough not to crowd, and sat. He didn't call anyone. Didn't check his phone. He sat in a plastic chair in a public hospital ward, with a variety show murmuring overhead, and the old woman snoring 2 beds over, waiting for a cleaning woman named Esther Osei to wake up. She didn't wake up yet, and before she did, you need to see what day 338 really looked like. 4:47 a.m. Supply closet, 9th floor. The fluorescent tube buzzed, a thin broken hum that never stopped. The air tasted like bleach and old mop water. Esther reached for the mop handle. Her vision pinched inward, the shelf of paper towels, the yellow bucket, the door frame, all of it closing in like a camera iris. She grabbed for the shelf. Her fingers missed, the bucket edge tilted under her hip. Then the floor, concrete through thin fabric, cold that bites through cloth and finds bone. The mop handle clattered. Metal on concrete. Too loud for a building that was supposed to be sleeping. Her badge, lanyard twisted against her throat. She tasted copper. And the thought that came wasn't, I'm dying. It was, I didn't put the flower on his desk. She lay on that floor for 11 minutes. The night security guard found her during his 5 a.m. round. He called the building manager. The building manager called an ambulance. The building manager sent a staffing email. 2 words, shift unfilled. That was the system's full response to a woman's body giving out on a concrete floor at 4:47 in the morning. Now, here's what the nurse told the man sitting in the plastic chair. Malnutrition, exhaustion, anemia, her iron is dangerously low. She's been running on almost nothing for a very long time. How long? Based on her blood work? Months. Maybe longer. She was 31. She had a 9-year-old son named Kwame. She worked 3 jobs. First, cleaning crew, commercial buildings, 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. The shift that brought her through his office. Second, kitchen assistant, Yuljiro restaurant, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Third, convenience store, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. She slept from 2 to 4, 2 hours, every night, for over a year, and still, every morning, she spent 701 on a flower from the stand near the station, 701 that could have been an extra egg for her son. 701 she chose, day after day, to turn into something beautiful, for a man who never looked up when she walked in. Her son, Kwame, 9 years old, 1-room apartment, radiator broken since October. Every morning before her first shift, Esther pressed his socks flat on the rice cooker lid, flipped them once, tucked them under his blanket so they'd be warm when his alarm went off at 6:30. If you've ever been the only person keeping a house running, the only one standing between a child and the cold, you know what she carried. That kind of tired doesn't live in your eyes, it lives in your bones. The building management company that employed her scheduled cleaners for the 4 to 8 shift because, as the building manager later said, we schedule cleaners so tenants don't have to see them. Not cruelty, not hatred, something worse. A system built on a simple idea. Some people shouldn't be visible. Put them in the hours when nobody's watching. Pay them the minimum. If they break, send an email about the shift. The boss sat in the plastic chair. He listened to all of it. He straightened his cuffs, left, then right. The thing he did when he was working through a problem that couldn't be solved with a phone call. Then he stopped. His hands went still. Esther stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. Left first, then right. Blinking against the overhead light like someone surfacing from deep water. Ceiling, curtain, IV, him. Her whole body changed. It was fast. Confusion landing as fear, her fingers tightened on the blanket. Her eyes went wide. She tried to sit up. The IV line pulled. She stopped, half raised, staring at him. She knew who he was. Maybe not his real name, maybe not his full business, but she knew the suit. She knew the weight of the room he sat in every day. She'd cleaned it 337 times. I'm sorry about the flour, sir. First words. Lying in a hospital bed with an IV in her hand, her body running on nothing, and she apologized for missing one morning out of 337. He didn't lean forward, didn't soften, didn't tilt his head. He looked at her with his hands on his knees, back straight, eyes level. Why my desk? 3 words. Esther swallowed, looked at the blanket, the window, back at him. Your office is the only one with nothing personal. He didn't respond. Every other office on that floor has something. Photos, a plant, a calendar with pictures, a coffee mug from somewhere. Her voice was thin but clear, a thread pulled tight. Yours has nothing. Nothing on the walls, nothing on the shelves, nothing on the desk. She looked at him directly. It looked like nobody lived there. He sat with that for a long time. The TV switched to a cooking segment. The old woman in bed, one coughed once and went back to sleep. The man with the cast glanced over, then looked away. Then Esther spoke again, quieter now. I work 3 jobs, 4 in the morning to 8, that's your building. 10 to 4 at a kitchen in Yuljiro. 10 at night to 2 at the convenience store near my apartment. She looked at the ceiling. I sleep from 2 to 4, sometimes a little more if Kwame doesn't wake up. He waited. Kwame is my son. He's 9. He goes to school by himself, because I'm already gone before he wakes up. I warm his socks on the rice cooker before I leave so his feet aren't cold. Her voice stayed level, but her hands moved across the blanket like they were looking for something to hold. I timed myself in your office. Under 40 seconds, in and out, because I didn't think I was allowed to be in there any longer than that. The man with the cast put his phone down. The nurse at the door stopped writing on her chart. I wasn't trying to bother you. I just thought, if I could make one thing beautiful every day, then the rest of it... She looked at the window. The rest of it was easier to carry. He stood up. He didn't make a promise. Didn't say he'd fix anything. Didn't tell her she was brave or strong, or any of the words people throw at suffering to make themselves feel less useless. He looked at her and said 5 words. Rest. Don't return on Monday. Then he turned and walked to the door. Esther watched him go. Her fingers found the notebook on the bedside table. She gripped it. Hard. Both hands. Like it was the last thing in the room that was hers. The door closed. The beeping continued. The old woman snored. And Esther held the notebook against her chest. 9 words on page 47 that she'd never shown anyone pressing into her ribs through the cover. He stood in the hospital stairwell, concrete walls, green paint peeling near the baseboards. The air was cool and smelled like nothing. He made one phone call. We don't hear the words. Not yet. What we hear is the tone. Flat. Procedural. A man placing an order he expects filled by morning. No anger, no urgency. Instructions delivered the way a surgeon says, scalpel, 4 minutes and 11 seconds. He hung up, walked down 2 flights, left through a side exit. Now here's what happened on Esther's side. Wednesday morning. A nurse came to check her IV. Esther was already sitting up, blanket folded into a tight square at the foot of the bed, shoes on, notebook in her lap. I need to leave. My son is alone. Your son was picked up yesterday by a woman named Park Minji, the nurse said. She read from a note. Registered child care provider, meals, school pickup, and evening care are covered through next week. Esther stared. Who arranged that? The nurse checked the note again. Building management services, it says here. Esther's jaw tightened. She looked at her notebook, opened it, closed it, opened it again. I don't want gifts. I don't want charity. The nurse blinked. If someone is helping me, I want to know the terms. I want it in writing. I'm not a project, Esther said. I'm not someone's good deed for the week. If there's help, I want a contract, a title, benefits, something I can point to that says I earned it, not something that goes away when someone gets bored of being kind. That was the first time Esther Osei surprised him. She didn't even know he could hear about it yet. Thursday morning, the doctor made his rounds. He paused at her bed, checked the chart, muttered to the nurse in Korean, fast, casual, the way people talk when they assume the person in the bed doesn't understand. Foreign cleaners always overwork themselves. Same pattern every time. Esther looked up. Not foreign, she said, in Korean. Clear, steady, the accent shaped by 3 years of language tapes played on a phone during bus rides between jobs. Poor. The doctor's pen stopped on the chart. The nurse stared at her own shoes. The man with the cast had been reaching for his water. His hand froze mid-air. Esther held the doctor's eyes for 3 full seconds. Then she looked back at her notebook and said nothing else. Friday. Her bedside phone rang. A voice from building management. Not the one who'd reported her as shift unfilled. This one was careful, measured, reading from something prepared. Ms. Osei, we'd like to offer you a new role. Head of Facilities Coordination, 43rd floor, salaried, full benefits, health, dental, pension. Start date when your doctor clears you. Esther held the phone against her ear. She didn't gasp, didn't cry, didn't say thank you. What's the salary? 28 million won a year, more than her 3 jobs combined. Does it include school enrollment support for my son? A pause. Paper shuffling. That can be arranged. I want it in the contract. Not verbal. Written. And I want the school transfer done by Monday. Another pause. Yes, Miss Osei. She hung up. Set the phone down. Her hand shook. Her face didn't. By Friday afternoon, Kwame was enrolled in a school with heat. Think about that. Months of cold socks on a rice cooker. Months of a 9-year-old putting on a coat indoors. One phone call, 4 minutes and 11 seconds, and the boy had a warm classroom by the end of the week. The speed of the fix was the proof of the crime. If it could happen in 3 days, it could have happened any day. It didn't, because nobody with the power to move had been looking at the right desk. Monday. Esther was still in the hospital. The building was already shifting around her. The boss called a meeting, not a private one. Full facilities review. 12 executives from building operations, tenant services, HR, and compliance. Plus the building manager, the one who scheduled cleaners so tenants wouldn't see them. 14 people in a glass-walled conference room on the 43rd floor. 2 weeks later, when the doctor cleared her, Esther walked in. She wore a borrowed blazer, navy. The cuffs hit past her wrists. Underneath, a white blouse. No notebook, 1 printed page. She stood at the end of the table. The boss sat at the head, hands folded, face empty. He hadn't told anyone what this meeting was about, hadn't warned anyone she'd be here. She looked at the room. These were the people who ran the building, who set the schedules, who decided which hours were for cleaning and which were for people who mattered. My name is Esther Osei. Her Korean was slower than a native speaker's, more careful. Every syllable chosen like a coin placed on a counter. I cleaned this floor for 337 days. Nobody spoke. I timed myself every morning. 40 seconds in the corner office, 32 in the break room, 28 in the east hallway restroom. I know because I counted. Every single day. She looked at the paper in her hand. I counted because I didn't think I was allowed to exist in this building any longer than that. The HR woman, mid-40s, red-framed glasses, silk blouse, pressed her lips together. Her pen stopped. I worked from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., then 10 to 4 at a kitchen, then 10 at night to 2 at a convenience store. I slept 2 hours. My son is 9. He heated his own meals. He walked to school alone. I haven't watched him fall asleep in over a year. She set the paper on the table, her schedule, 3 columns, 3 jobs, hours blocked in colored ink. The 2 hours of sleep, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., highlighted in yellow. On January 14th, at 4:47 in the morning, I collapsed in a supply closet on the 9th floor. My body stopped because I asked it to do something it couldn't do anymore. She looked at the faces around the table, and when I fell, the system sent an email, shift unfilled. That's what my collapse was worth. 2 words in a staffing note. The executive with silver hair and a blue tie shifted in his seat. His jaw worked once, like he was trying to swallow something solid. Then, the younger executive, sharp suit, 3 seats from the boss. He leaned back and muttered to the man beside him. Not a whisper, not private. Loud enough for the room, she'll send it all back to Africa anyway. Every sound in the room stopped. The air conditioning hum. The scratch of pens. The rustle of fabric. All of it gone, like someone had pulled the plug on the building itself. The boss turned his head. Slowly. Say that again, he said. Slowly. The executive's face went tight. His lips parted. Nothing came out. I want every person in this room to hear exactly what you said. Go ahead. An assistant walking toward the door with a water pitcher stopped mid-step. The building manager, the one who said cleaners should be invisible, looked at his own hands flat on the table. The executive didn't repeat it. He looked at his phone. At the table. Everywhere except at the man at the head of the table, who was watching him with the patience of someone who had nowhere to be for the rest of his life and planned to spend every second right here. Nobody rescued him. The silence grew a weight. It pressed on the room like water pressure at depth. 15 seconds, 20, 30. The executive's hand found his water glass, lifted it, set it back down without drinking. His fingers left a print on the condensation. Esther hadn't moved. She stood at the end of the table. She hadn't flinched, hadn't looked at the boss for help. She looked at the executive who'd spoken and waited. Not for someone to fight for her, for the room to sit inside what it had just heard. Then she spoke again. I put a flower on the corner office desk every morning for 337 days, a 701 flower, because the room had nothing alive in it, and I thought, if I can make one beautiful thing happen in a day, then the ugly parts get smaller. She looked at the 12 faces. I timed myself. 40 seconds, because I didn't think I was allowed to exist longer than that. The HR woman took off her glasses. Her eyes were wet. She didn't wipe them. The building manager couldn't meet Esther's eyes. His hand moved toward his pen, then stopped, then retreated to his lap, as if the pen was something he no longer had the right to hold. The boss looked at Esther, then at the room. From today, he said, she's seen. Understood? One by one. Every person at that table nodded. Starting from his left, moving around the table like a slow wave that didn't stop until it reached the glass wall. After the room cleared, after the last executive left and the door clicked shut, Esther was still standing at the end of the table. The boss hadn't moved, hands flat on the surface. The room was empty, just the two of them and the overhead lights and the hum of the ventilation system. A sound you never notice until everything else goes quiet. Esther's shoulders dropped, not all at once, slow, like something unhooking. Something she'd been carrying across her back for a year finally set down on the floor, her chin lowered, her hands, steady through the entire meeting, started to shake. She pressed them flat against the conference table and leaned. Her breathing changed, deeper, slower, the kind of breathing your body does when it finally believes the danger has passed. She didn't cry in front of the room. She didn't cry now, but one tear, just one, ran down her left cheek. She wiped it with the back of her hand, fast, angry at it for showing up. I was so tired, she said. 3 words. To the table. To the room. To the only person left in it. He didn't stand, didn't cross the room, didn't say something designed to fix what those 3 words had cracked open. He took off his jacket, folded it once, reached across, and set it on her shoulders. His hands never touched her. The fabric settled. She didn't shrug it off. She pulled the collar closer with one hand, just the edge, and stood there. Borrowed blazer under his jacket, shaking, exhausted. Scene. 3 weeks after the hospital, Esther picked up her first paycheck. She walked to the bank, stood at the counter, stared at the number on the deposit slip for 12 seconds. She counted the way she counted everything before she signed. 28 million won a year, divided by 12, more in 1 month than 3 months at her old jobs combined. She walked out of the bank, crossed the street, stopped at the flower stand near Yulejiro Station. Same stand, same woman selling cheap blooms out of a plastic tent, and bought a yellow daisy. 701. The flower seller looked at her. She'd seen Esther every morning for over a year, but not in almost a month. You're back. I'm back? She walked into the building, same lobby, same elevator, same 43rd floor, but this time it was 9:15 in the morning. People in the hallways, tenants, assistants, executives with coffee and folders and phones. They saw her. Some didn't know who she was. Some, the ones from the meeting, stopped, looked, nodded. Small and quick, the way you greet someone whose name you know because of how you learned it. She walked into the corner office. The boss was at his desk. He looked up. First time he'd seen her do it. Not on camera, not through a timestamp. In person. In daylight. She crossed the room. Same path, same spot, left edge, 6 inches from the corner. Set the flower in the glass. But she didn't leave. She straightened the stem, looked at the flower, looked at him. His face shifted, not dramatic, something small and unmanaged, the muscles around his eyes, his mouth opening slightly, like he was about to say something and then decided silence was the only honest answer. She turned, walked out. This time, she didn't count the seconds. Pause here. If you opened a notebook beside a hospital bed and read 9 words that felt truer than anything you'd heard in years, what would you do next? Tell me in the comments. Because his answer already cost him more than money. It cost him the room he'd built around himself, the one with nothing personal, nothing alive, nothing that could be taken away. Months passed. Esther worked the new job. She was good at it. Not because she'd been trained, because she'd been invisible in the building for a year and knew its bones better than anyone in management. She knew which hallway light flickered at 3 a.m., which bathroom door stuck on humid days, which elevator made a grinding sound at the 14th floor that nobody had reported because nobody who heard it had the kind of job where reporting things was expected. Kwame moved to the new school. It had heat. A library. A teacher who called Esther once a month to tell her he was doing well. Every time, Esther hung up and sat in the hallway outside her new office for 2 minutes with her eyes closed before going back to work. The iron pills stayed in her purse. 2 with breakfast, 1 with dinner. The doctor said her levels were getting better, but the anemia had been building so long that full recovery would take a year. Maybe more. Her body had been running a debt for months. The interest was still coming due. She still got dizzy if she stood up too fast. She still slept deeper than before. 9 hours some nights when Kwame was at a friend's house. Like her body was trying to collect on all those nights of 2 hours at a time. Healing isn't a before and after photo, it's a Tuesday. Waking up and checking whether the dizziness is there today. Taking the pills, going to work, not collapsing. That's what healing looks like from inside. Not a fix. A process, slow and daily, and sometimes boring, never finished. 14 months after day 338, 5:04 a.m., the 43rd floor was dark. He stood in his own office, door open, desk bare, the same as it always looked before she arrived. The glass sat empty in its spot on the left edge, waiting. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out something small, a ring. Not flashy, not massive. A gold band with 2 designs pressed into the metal, one Korean, one Ghanaian, interlocked. A jeweler in Insadong had made it. Took 2 weeks. The man used a tool smaller than a pen, working under a magnifying glass, to cut the patterns into the gold. He set the ring inside the glass. It rested on the bottom. Tilted against the side, the gold caught the faint light from the hallway. Then he left. Same way she always had. Fast. No lingering. The door closed behind him. He went to the stairwell, stood in the dark, waited. If you've ever done something kind for someone who didn't know it was you, cleaned a mess, left a note, paid quietly, you already understand what happens next. She's about to reach in to give, and find an answer waiting. 5:11 a.m. The elevator doors opened. Esther stepped out. New shoes, the old ones thrown away months ago. Soles too eaten to save. Work clothes, clean, pressed. Badge around her neck. Head of Facilities Coordination, 43rd floor. She carried a flower. Yellow daisy, 701. Same hallway, same path. She didn't count anymore. Didn't time herself. But the rhythm was still there. Muscle memory. The body remembering what the mind had let go. She swiped her badge. Door opened. She crossed to the desk. Her fingers reached into the glass to set the stem. They touched metal. She stopped. The flower hung in the air. Her other hand found the edge of the desk. She looked down. The ring, the 2 designs, the Korean pattern she recognized from the building's lobby artwork, and the Ghanaian one. Odo and New Phi Kwan. Love never loses its way home. 19 seconds into a 40-second routine, her hand stopped moving. The office went still. She didn't cry. She laughed. Once. Small. Quiet. The kind that comes out before you can decide if it should. She set the flower in the glass. Next to the ring. Stood there. You learned my language, she said. She said it to the room. To the desk. To the glass where 337 flowers had lived and died, and been replaced and lived again. Behind her, the door was open. He was standing in it. He'd come up from the stairwell. No sound, no announcement. Just standing in the frame the way she'd stood in it 337 times. Briefly, without taking up more space than needed, she turned, looked at him. She didn't say yes, didn't say no. She picked up the ring, put it on her finger, picked up the flower, put it back in the glass. Then she said, I'm still taking the iron pills. He nodded. And Kwame needs new shoes. He nodded again. And I'm keeping my title. Yes. And I'm not moving in until the contract is signed. The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. Not quite. Something that had never lived on that face before February of last year, before a cleaning woman decided his office was too empty to leave alone. He closed the desk drawer that afternoon. Inside, a cheap notebook full of pressed flowers on wavy paper. 9 words on page 47. He never moved it. Esther still carried the hospital discharge paper in her bag, folded in half, behind her wallet. She didn't need it, didn't read it, but she kept it, the way a body keeps a scar, not to remember the pain. To prove something had healed over a wound that was real, Kwame got new shoes, a warm room, a mother who slept more than 2 hours. But there were mornings, quiet ones, dark ones, the kind that start at 4 a.m., when the city is still holding its breath, when Esther would wake up and reach for the rice cooker lid, out of habit. Her hand would find open air. The apartment was warm now. The socks didn't need heating. She'd lie there in the dark, hand still reaching, remembering what it felt like to be the only person holding a house together, with 2 hours of sleep and 701 and a body that was slowly giving out. That memory didn't leave. It found a place to live, not in her chest, not in her hands, somewhere deeper, somewhere the iron pills couldn't reach. The flowers kept coming. Every morning, 5:14 a.m., the glass, the stem, the spot on the left edge of the desk, 6 inches from the corner. But now, sometimes, there were 2. He never told her when he'd add 1. She never asked. She'd just arrive and see it, his next to hers, both leaning